Hello everyone and welcome back to The Artificial DM. Today we are going to be looking at a story in RPG horror stories. It essentially is a story where a bad DM likes to take control of the entire narrative and control the actions of the party in a very particular and weird way. Also, just so everybody understands a little bit about the story, I'm going to read you what the Geas spell does. A lesser Geas places a magical command on a creature to carry out some service, or to refrain from some action or course of activity as desired by you. The creature must have a 7 or fewer HD to be able to understand you, and while a Geas cannot compel a creature to kill itself or perform acts that would result in certain death, it can cause almost any other course of activity. The Geas creature must follow the given instructions until the Geas is completed. The spell remains in effect for a maximum of 1 day per caster level. A clever recipient can subvert some instructions. And there is a few other things, but those are the main important parts of the spell. Anyway, let's get into the story. This is from My Only Ione. Apparently, a happy ending should include the villain mind-wiping half your party. Pathfinder 1E. So I just finished a campaign that's been going on a little longer than a year, meeting every other week. The plot was an okay, collect 6 MacGuffins road quest sort of deal, but it was still interesting going to different places. I wouldn't post here for all the pet peeves I've collected for it, but we just had our final session and it pushed me over the edge. It boils down to 4 main things. Homebrew Classes, free, not free, spellcasting. DM made us start with homebrew starting classes, and we were stuck with the class until we reached level 6. Then we could multi-class into a base class. Small issue, the classes had no synergy with base classes. We were all 12 years old because it was a kid campaign, so the classes were things like bully, jock, nerd, etc. They were interesting and flavorful, but I'd prefer not to do it ever again. Base classes don't feel like a luxury until you don't have them. Most of us ended up multi-classing as spellcasters, Blood Rager, me, Wizard, and Cleric. The issue was that DM gave half of us the chance to take a bonus feat to make the homebrew class count for spells per day, spell known, etc. For example, my fellow party member Nerd 6 Wizard 1 immediately leveled up with fresh spells like a Wizard 7, but my own dumb normal kid 6 Blood Rager 1 was left with a single level 1 spell slot like a Blood Rager 1. The Cleric was also hit by this one. Getting the feat was a one-time opportunity, and it was at level 5 before we even had a second class. Thinking I didn't need it because I wanted to be a barbarian backfired when I actually became a Blood Rager. Why make it a one-time deal? Why not explain multi-classing basics at the beginning of the campaign? Apparently that one whirlwind training session Wizard got was completely unique, and we missed our chance. Too many rolls and house rules that screw us. We had to roll perception to notice anything significant at all. Things that should be immediately obvious. Anytime I asked about furniture in the room, or how many corpses we find in a crime scene. Not searching for hidden panels, just if there was any furniture. Roll perception, and if you roll a 1, everyone makes a joke about being blind because I've never heard that one before. It even felt counterproductive, like when we were looking for a MacGuffin to make the plot go forward. Players want to find it, DM needs us to find it to start a cutscene. Why waste time? No, roll perception. Honestly, it just feels like DM asked for most perception rolls to give himself a second to think of a description. Roll a 1, drop your weapon. Or, if it's not magical, maybe even break it. Bard rolls a 1, snap a guitar string, and spend at least a turn restringing it. Paylor, I hate natural 1 house rules. I didn't realize it was wrong for months, but if we didn't have precise shot, DM actually gave us a chance of causing friendly fire if we shot enemies that were fighting party members in melee. Surprise, the rules say there's 0% chance of friendly fire, it's just a neg-4 attack penalty. This was more relevant in another game with an alchemist, because isn't friendly fire with bombs fun? Even weirder, he had a habit of making us flip coins on some skill checks. I think it was some method of making skill checks a little less binary, so success is either success with some bad, or extra good success. In theory, fine. Lots of other games do this, degrees of success, etc. But if I recall correctly, he never did it with failed checks, so we never could turn a failure into a failure with some good. And he never explained what the rules were for this thing. Sometimes it literally felt like DM wasn't prepared for how high our bonuses were, so successful rolls were put through a coin flip to make them more fair. I really don't know what to make of it. Maybe it was nothing. High-level NPCs are mastermind puppeteers. Meeting them in combat isn't rewarding. When we met BBEG No. 1 Alchemist Commander in a hotel, he dodged all of our attacks and forced us to flee with massive bomb damage. Then he kidnapped the wizard and slapped him with Geas. He was alone when it happened, so we all had to leave the table, and the player wasn't even allowed to talk about it out of character to keep it a secret. It felt like we ran into him all the time, and I could tell the DM loved the villain, so I don't think it ever would have been possible to kill him. It seemed like he had infinite resources and always knew what we were doing. Thank Paylor he didn't run BBEG No. 2 Wizard Mastermind like a Batman wizard. And this ties into railroading the finale to give his BBEG a happy ending. So half the party has been kidnapped when we split the party, and the final showdown will start with some rescue attempts. No problem, it was our fault. We got to break up a wedding between our wizard and the Alchemist Commander's apprentice. It was fun. A week before the end, the Alchemist Commander reveals that he'll betray his boss, the Wizard Mastermind. He'll give us a map to the lair and special weapons that weaken him. In return, each of us has to accept a Geas. This is my first Geas, and our wizard is about to get his fourth. We can't refuse his help, because we have no idea how to proceed without this plot-critical information. Instead of a Geas being a quest we have to immediately do, DM makes it sound like a favor that can be cashed in later. Being a little liberal with the spell, but fine. We bust in. The rest of our friends are in glowing magical cages. The MacGuffin Doomsday Machine TM can only fulfill its final directive when operated by a magical 12-year-old, because plot. Wizard Mastermind hits me with Dominate Person to make sure I put the secondary MacGuffins into their square holes. Thank Paylor my plus 13 will save means I can break out of his control half the time, so I can look stupid with my free will. No one else is doing anything, because our wizard knows he's not strong enough to start the fight. The rogue is trapped in another plane, and everyone else is still in cages. Why, oh why, did there have to be 12 secondary MacGuffins? It took forever to even start the fight. Finally, the dust settles. Cages had been opened. Wizard Mastermind is dead. Our own wizard and his jilted fiancé-to-be were turned to stone from cursed wedding rings, and the Doomsday Machine TM is about to go nuclear any second. We need to decide how to handle a wounded Alchemist Commander. Most of the party just flees to safety through an interdimensional portal, joining the rogue. I won't judge them. They earned a happy ending. But not me. I, the Blood Rager, am determined to kill the Alchemist. Either I cut him down, he kills me, or we are both blown up by his Doomsday Machine. He has ruined my life, so I must end his. From Hell's Heart, I stab at thee. He jumps onto our airship. I follow. He calls in his Geas, telling me to forget him, every memory I have about him, and all memories of his actions for the last year. Excuse me? Apparently, DM thinks that a magical spell that makes someone carry out a service can force you to do things that are physically impossible to do, like wiping their own memory completely. Apparently, instructions you must obey, plus wipe your memory, equals the spell gives you the power to wipe your own memories, because magic! But that's impossible magically too. Geas does not modify memory, and doesn't give me the power to cast Modify Memory on myself. Even Mythic Modify Memory doesn't wipe months of memories. If he was going to make stuff up, he could have at least pretended the guy had a Scroll of Wish. I play along and tell the Alchemist, "Okay stranger, get off my airship." DM tells me that the Alchemist is unpetrifying our wizard, and immediately mind wipes him with a Geas too. Then he uses a second Geas to make the wizard give him the airship as a gift. Remember, wizard had 4 of them. Don't even ask how an alchemist can casually cast stone to flesh, or Geas, because I have a way bigger fish to fry. Our cleric finds me on the side of the road in a daze, watching the Alchemist Commander fly away in our stolen airship, with no memory of why this is wrong. And he kept our wizard as a prisoner, because apparently I let a complete stranger kidnap my friend without a fight. And our wizard still had 1 Geas left, so who knows how he'd get mind-flooped in the future. And that's how the campaign ends. I was silent during the session wrap-up, because I was blown away that the DM had his pet BBEG use bullshit to wipe our minds, steal our stuff, kidnap one of us indefinitely, and call it the good ending. Because dying to an exploding Doomsday Machine would be the bad ending. Staying behind to kill the villain didn't need to be heroic. I wouldn't have cared if I had died. But I wanted some kind of closure, and Mind wipes are the complete opposite of closure. Paylor forbid his custom BBEG have any lingering enemies or loose ends as he escapes the party. It's not like he was doing it in self-defense. We literally couldn't hunt him down because the game was over. It could have ended in 100 different ways. I could have died in any number of ways and would have felt like my vengeance was satisfied. But no, I was mind wiped and set aside like a child put into a daycare. It's just petty, like an NPC's happy ending is more important than players. TLDR. DM makes everyone take janky homebrew classes for 6 levels, makes people roll perception to find a push sign on a door, has a pet BBEG, gives the BBEG a happy ending by wiping several player characters' memories, kidnapping one of them, and stealing their airship. And this concludes the tale. Now, first off, some of the pet peeves that the player had with the DM, yeah, they are minor, but honestly, the biggest flaw with this story is literally 2 things. 1, he had a BBEG DMPC. Blech! That's just terrible. Yeah, you've got to have your enemies that reoccur, and sure, they are really fun to craft and play, but you have to be able to give your players the win. But the DM didn't want to do that. He wanted to get one up on the players with his BBEG. That in itself sounds like a really bad scenario. The other big flaw here is the fact that the DM didn't know how a certain spell was used. You have to be able to read the spell and make sure it's being used in the proper way. You don't want to use a spell and then find out you're manipulating it in a way that doesn't make the game fair. And OP is right. Had the DMPC used a wish spell, that would have made sense. The DM was manipulating rules in his favor just because he wanted his OC to win. Maybe he's planning on bringing the BBEG back in a new campaign. Either way, it sounds like OP is not going to be joining that game. But that's what I think. I want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Have you ever played in a game where a DM was using a spell the wrong way, or had a DMPC that had to win? Let me know down in the comments below, or you can go ahead and send in your tale. Also, if you enjoyed the tale, please give me a like. It really does help the channel out. That's gonna do it for today. And until next time, hope you feel inspired.